Welcome, everyone. As part of our series here at Ministry of Pop Culture, where we're talking to each of our colleagues and learning a bit about their journeys as writers and as people immersed in pop culture, today we're going to be talking with Jennifer Keishin Armstrong, who's written many books that you've probably read and also is one of the mainstays of our ministry team. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So maybe tell us a bit about what do you do now? How do you occupy your time and how does pop culture writing fit into that?
I think it's really important to know that all of us have multiple jobs. So obviously we do the ministry and that's great. And if you send us tons of money, maybe we can do that full time. But until then, um, we also do other things. And so I write books. I write about pop culture history, mainly focusing on television. I have my ninth book coming out in the spring that's about Parks and Rec, available for pre-order. And I also work for the Peabody Awards in media, and that's we always say the prestigious Peabody Awards. I do their newsletter and I help to produce the podcast, which I feel very, very lucky to have this job. It's very nice to have guaranteed sources of income in this world, and I feel even luckier that it is about the thing I love. I get to use my TV knowledge of current and also the past to do that.
And what was your relationship with pop culture like when you were a kid?
I was a big nerd, and I always tell people kind of who say that they want to go into this, like, just check. Like, and I can usually actually tell when somebody talks about it if they're like nerdy enough because there's like, we all like it. We all like pop culture. They make it, so you like it. That's the idea. But I was from the get-go almost like the one who would know, who Norman Lear was, who made All in the Family, which to me, that's the hallmark is like, do you know the producers? Do you know the stuff behind the scenes? I would never just be a fan like a normal person. Like, if I was a fan of something, I would, and this is the second part of my nerdery, go to the library and I'd look up everything about it because this is pre-Google. And so my idea was like, I couldn't just like be a George Michael fan. I had to have my mom drop me off at the library for 3 hours so that I could look him up and I could read every article that's been written about him. And I then could go to the record store and get every single thing this man has ever recorded, even if it was bad, because I just wanted to like know the evolution. I wanted to know everything. And so this was how I worked. And similarly, like with TV, I would get the TV guide, which came, weekly as a little print magazine. And when it came, I would read all the articles and then I would circle what I was going to watch on the little grids. So like that's the kind of thing I always feel like if I see people doing that, I'm like, oh, see, and I know it wouldn't be the same because times are different, but like that level of just like now like I enjoy, Cheers the sitcom, but like I've read all about it. I know everything about it. I know who makes it. I'm watching the credits to see like who writes stuff. I started to know like, oh, I really like that writer's, you know, episodes or whatnot, like that kind of level.
And was there a moment for you where it kind of occurred to you, oh, I could do this also. I could write about pop culture?
I think a little bit even with that TV guide thing, right? Was like, oh, there's people doing this. And I actually remember saying to one of my friends, like People magazine would also come to the house every week. And I was like, I wonder how you like get to be one of those people who does that, who, makes People magazine. And so it was there pretty early. I always was interested in magazines and writing. Um, and then I think like I did. So probably like a little bit of a breakthrough moment was that once again, this is very nerdy, went to journalism camp in high school and I took opinion writing. You had to pick a track. And I won the opinion writing award for my review of the movie City Slickers. I wish to God I still had that.
I would
Um,
absolutely read that.
but they like, it was throughout the week we did a bunch of different stuff. We did op-eds, we did it, but one day she took us to the movies. And that was like our opinion writing for that day was the movie review. And clearly I figured out I don't know how this worked. I don't know if I had to submit that for the award or what, but like clearly I sort of excelled at that particular kind of opinion writing. And so that was kind of like where I was like, oh, I think I personally could do this.
And how did you go from your journalism camp successes to having, cultural criticism and culture writing become a full-time job for you?
Yeah, I quickly after that, I was a huge overachiever. And in college, I actually started working for local newspapers. And there were two parts of this. The first part was I really would go to like the sewage board meetings and stuff like whatever they'd send me to and just do like real local news reporting. And then eventually, and I can't totally remember how this happened. I must have asked or something, but I was able to sort of pivot that to I was working for the Daily Southtown, which was one of the local papers near where I grew up. And I started writing music or specifically concert reviews for them. And I honestly think that I was attractive to them mainly because I was young, like I was in college, and I think they didn't know like they were like, who do we send to review, Radiohead or whatever. I literally did go. I saw Radiohead open for REM, which blows my mind. I also interviewed Radiohead, which I am terrified by. I shudder to think what I would have said to Tom York. Like, I have no idea. And don't have this clip, and I'm so glad because I was probably like, are you really a loser? Is that why you wrote it? Like, I'm sure I just said stupid stuff. But I got to kind of like really start doing this. And I was like, I had these I reviewed Elton John concerts and Sarah McLachlan and all we got to go to all these. I always got two tickets, so I would take my younger sibling, and we still marvel to this day at some of the like sick shows that we saw that we did not understand how sick it was at the time. So that was kind of, I started really accumulating the clips there and took that with me into even after college. I was a local newspaper reporter for quite some time, but I would always do the same tactic where I would then go over to the entertainment section and say, like, by the way, I'll work for free. I'll do extra work for you for free if you let me get entertainment clips. So that was kind of how I started to get it going.
hmm And I know you end up getting to work at Entertainment Weekly during sort of its golden era. Do you feel like there were particular lessons that you learned in terms of how to do this work from your time at EW?
So, so much. And one of my favorite stories is that my boss who hired me actually told me, I actually asked him, like, why did you hire me when I didn't have that much? I just still had all of these like side entertainment clips, but my main job had been as a local news reporter. And he said, we actually liked that you knew how to report and we could teach you the entertainment part. And we knew you had some experience with it, but mostly he was like, we could give you our contacts. It was more about that you knew how to report and write quickly. And so I always loved that because it proved that it wasn't all for nothing. But then it was like, let's switch to the opposite. And what am I going to learn about entertainment here? And I realized I knew a lot about history, and that's where I really gained an appreciation for this. And I actually kind of made this a little bit of my niche. My niche ended up being, but it took a long time, kind of social issues and history. And so that is part of what I learned is actually just like, and this would be true of any subject matter, is finding your strengths and going toward that and making that also like what isn't being done quite yet here. I learned that you really have to know a lot about entertainment to work at a place like that. Going back to my earlier point, like you would be in these meetings and part of me felt like a Make-A-Wish kid on the one hand that I just got to be in that meeting because it's crazy. Like they were so sort of dreamy if you were the person that I just described growing up. And also just these people you've seen their bylines and now they're here and they're just talking. On the other hand, I was super intimidated because like as one example of many, it's like there's a guy whose whole deal is he knows about Disney. He knows everything about Disney history. Do not mess with him. Do not come at him with your questions. And do not pitch a story about Disney without checking with this man. Like, this is what he does. You know what I mean? And you'd have these like super, super, super nerds that were just unlike anybody you would have met in the normal world. They knew so, so much. And so it took me a really long time to get up the nerve to be like pitching in meetings and stuff because I was like, where do I belong in all this? And am I just going to say something where somebody else is like, that's not true at all, or whatever. But I really eventually found my way. I was the news and notes assistant, and then I became the TV assistant when that person left. And that really, like, things started going for me after that. And kind of, I specialized in TV for the most part. You could move around a little, but you kind of had to pick a major. And so that's kind of where I ended up like getting some momentum, et cetera, et cetera. And so I really like learned to find my niches. You'd still, even within the TV department, because the TV department's several people. So you'd end up with like niche with a niche. So I became kind of like lady shows, ladies in comedy, teens. Nobody wanted teens, so I took teens. So that was great. That was during the time of the OC, for instance. I was on the set of the OC like very early. It was super cool. And then you kind of learn even to report on a set. And weirdly, a thing that I feel like I really learned there was to not be impressed with celebrities.
which ends up being a pretty crucial skill to have for
It's
doing this kind
so crucial. And I actually did early in my career there, I did some red carpet reporting because it's kind of like you had to do it if you were like low on the totem pole. I thought it was going to be so cool and glamorous. Hated it. Hated it with the burning passion of a thousand suns. Terrible at it. They eventually figured this out and would not send me anymore. But because I'm not going to yell at people on a carpet. I feel demeaned and demoralized being penned in on one side while the celebrities are on the other. But what I did learn from that is like if you go to a red carpet, especially like really starry ones, I say it's kind of like exposure therapy. You just get hit with a lot of celebrities real fast. And so once I did a few of those, I did like the Chicago premiere, the movie musical that's like a billion huge stars in that. I met like Paul Newman and Tom Hanks. I did Road to Perdition. I met Mel Gibson um, at the premiere of Signs. I did the Charlie's Angels premieres. These are a lot of stars very fast. So then I got to the point where I was just like, they're just people, they're fine, they're jerks or they're not or whatever, but I just really stopped caring very quickly and kind of just got used to it. And I think that was a huge advantage.
So, obviously the media landscape has changed a bunch since the era of Entertainment Weekly's golden age. Do you have advice for younger writers or for people who are interested in cultural criticism as a potential career path?
It is hard in some ways because like stories I just told you don't totally apply one to one anymore. I can't just be like, you know what you should do is you should get a job at a local newspaper and work your way up, or even at Entertainment Weekly on staff. Like these are not things that exist anymore per se, the way they did for me. But I think you can still take lessons from any of our careers, even though we are older people. And one part is just like it's still about getting your stuff out there, and if you know what you want to do, just following your passion to do that and knowing you're gonna like not be paid that or not be paid at all, not be paid that much. Have your stuff edited in a way you don't like it. Like there's all these different things that can happen, but you have to just kind of like keep trucking, keep going, and work on getting your stuff out there. And I would say, like, for any of this, you have to almost treat it a little like it's a career in the arts, whether or not that's how people see us or we see ourselves. It's very similar in the sense that you have the one track of like following what you want to do and doing whatever it takes to make that happen. And now you do have more ways, right? Like a Substack or whatever. Like you can start one right now and start doing what you want to do, but then maybe also realizing you might have to have a dumb job or two to support that. And it's great if eventually things flip and you can do it full time. I don't know what the world's going to look like even in a year, much less 10 or 20. So I don't know what this career looks like for people who say might just be graduating now. But I will say it has always endured. Books have been dead, journalism has been dead, everything has been dead, declared dead a million times, and something still perseveres. So probably something will be there, I hope. And you just have to kind of figure out like the trade-off between your art, your passion and making money. And it actually took me a really long time to figure that out. And I thought I was really just entitled to have the career I wanted to have. I still want to believe that, but I also realized that you have to find ways to feed yourself. So both and
Thanks so much for chatting with us.
sure.